iPhone through this cross-compiler kit. I'm more than sure that it pissed Apple off. I'm sure Apple's been thinking, we've been playing to you for 3 damn years that we don't want Flash on the iPhone, and now we hear about you making this cross-compiler toolkit to be released in CS5. No, I'm sure they did get their stones rubbed the wrong way. I'm not going to say how much of it was out of being a vendetta or spite, and I'm not going to say how much of it was a business decision. I don't know because I wasn't there. But I've followed Apple for a long time, and they don't bury other companies just because they can. Okay?
Okay, Al, that's a really interesting statement. This video is going to be about fanboyism in its finest. And I want to just name first before we get into it, because I'm going to let him say one more thing before I get into this. But let me name some of the companies that Apple has buried. Yes, buried because they can over the years. Microsoft, Adobe, HTC, and arguably the next target on their list is Google. Two of these companies are stronger because of Apple's attack, and one isn't really any that much weaker. I don't think the fourth's going to be hurt that much either. So, interesting point of view.
Adobe has been very contrary about this whole Flash issue from the very beginning.
CS5. I don't think that was good, healthy competition, Apple. That was just...
And how do we know they didn't let Adobe know months beforehand? I mean, we have to assume that Adobe told Apple what they was doing with their secretive CS5 suite. You know, I didn't even know, really, here till recently that they could do this in CS5. I'd say only the developers knew. This is kind of a new thing. So, they couldn't really change the terms of service till they released their new products that they've released. Well, I guess they could have. I can't say that. That's wrong.
Well, to put it simple, you were just plain straightforward being a fucking dick, Apple. Simple as that, on my...
And I think Adobe's been being a dick for the past 5 years. Apple begged Adobe in 2006, I think, to write a native version of Photoshop for their platform, and Adobe refused to do it. They wrote they ported it. They wrote a cross-platform crap. Apple has begged for Adobe's support the past 10 years, and they've always put Windows first. Just like they made us wait a year for the 64-bit version, you walk and blab out any excuse you want, but Adobe has been nothing but dicks to Apple over the past 3 years. Apple's tried to keep Flash off the iPhone, and now all of a sudden they hear about this cross-compiling kit. I'm sure it pissed them off, and I think Adobe gets what they deserve. We'll just have to agree to disagree.
I don't have an issue with Adobe, so I'm quite happy to defend Adobe.
I'm sure you are, because you use Adobe's products to make your living. Just like I use Apple's products to make my living. I don't use Adobe's products, you know. If I used Adobe's products to make my living, I might feel differently.
But I don't think that was... I think you could have handled it better, Apple.
Well, I think Adobe could have handled it better. That kit shouldn't have even been in production for the iPhone in the first place. If they want to make a cross-compiler kit for all the other app stores, that's their business. But they know Apple didn't want it from the very beginning. They knew they didn't want Flash from the... You know, I can't believe Adobe went to Steve Jobs and said, we're making this cross-compiler toolkit to run Flash on the iPhone 6 months or 3 months before they changed the terms of service, and Apple didn't say no. If Adobe would have come to Apple with this toolkit, Apple would have told them no. So you're not going to make me believe that Apple just now told them no. If Apple just now told them no, then Apple just now found out about it, because Adobe would not have contacted Apple and said, we're making a cross-compiler toolkit to run Flash apps on the iPhone. Steve Jobs would have said no as soon as they mentioned it. He wouldn't have had to have waited and springing on them like this. So either Adobe's kept it secret, or Apple has flat out told them months ago and they've ignored them.
Third-party developers, one of your biggest developers on your product, if it's not the biggest developer, I think you could have been a bit more open with them and say, hey...
And I think that's proof. Apple don't give a fuck who you are. You play by Apple's rules because they keep a lockdown platform that keeps it to go. Apple had to bow to Adobe, because if Adobe left their platform, where would they be? But now they have some kind of the power to control their own platform, and Adobe can't stand it, it don't seem like.
obviously makes a lot of money from Apple and selling Photoshop and these sort of things from that. But in saying that, what would happen if they did, Apple?
What would happen? We would run boot camp, Gareth. That's what we...
Okay, sorry for Swiss cutting him like that, but is that enough fanboy contradictions for y'all? I used to think all Apple users were like this. Since doing this, I have learned that there are three groups of Apple users. There's the fanboys, which I still can't stand, and they're one of the main reasons I hate Apple. Then there's actually some Apple people with common sense who realize that Apple playing all this us versus everyone else crap is one of the real things that's wrong with Apple. They like Apple products, but they really wish Apple would get the hell out of the way of their own products and let them be good products, damn it. And, and then there's the people who just don't know any better. Which camp they wind up in, or whether they wind up leaving Apple when their eyes get open is a different matter once altogether. But it's just the contradiction. This is all fanboyism. You can make the same argument with Linux fanboys who are like, oh, Linux is 100% of your needs, and all software should be free, and if it's not free, it's evil. It's not wrong to make money. It's wrong to be greedy. There's a difference. I'm a fan, if possible, make it free to the end user. Free to the end user doesn't mean you don't make money off of it. It just means you're making it free to the end user. The real problem with fanboyism, they contradict themselves, and yet it makes sense in their head. And if Amy or any Apple fanboy wants to reply to me and make this make sense and explain it, I'd love to finally get it. Because I don't know how you can say things like, Apple begged for Flash, and Adobe's trying to force Flash on Apple. Which, by the way, they're not. They're just trying to make they're just trying to make the developers who are still using Flash be able to make things that are iPhone compatible, which now ain't going to happen. So Apple isn't going to get any of the benefit from those developers unless they force them to abandon Flash entirely, which those developers aren't going to do. And this argument here, oh, we want boot camp. For those of you who don't know what boot camp is the equivalent for OS X to what dual booting is for a Linux machine. It's, I have a partition on my drive that has Windows installed in it. Apple also makes a thing called Parallels, which they want you to buy, which is the same as VirtualBox. And correct me if I'm wrong, but VirtualBox runs on Mac 2. So, my question is this. A, is Parallels any superior? But B, and Emika said this several times, and Apple fanboys in general say this, they bash Linux for doing these exact same solutions. Why is it right for Apple to do it, and wrong for Linux to do the exact same thing to solve the exact same problem? I'm confused. I don't understand here. It's like, hi pop, me kettle. Right for you, wrong for some. That's the whole problem with fanboyism. It's, you twist everything around, and basically the end mentality of fanboyism of any kind, whether it's Apple, Linux, Windows, or anything in general, is screw the end user, fuck the end user, fuck the end user. If it ain't good for this company, it's bad. Even though it's solving problems that this company created that the end user wants solved, and even if they're not a techie person, they do care about the things that this solves, that this fixes. But screw them, they're too stupid to know, and I want them to stay stupid, so let's not fix any of the problems. Am I the only one that has a problem with this mentality? I'm up on time, but that's the question. I want to hear back from all of y'all. Those of you who are Apple users on site, is like, does this make your head hurt as much as it makes my head hurt? Saying, oh, fuck the end user. If it's not good for Apple, fuck the end user. It's like, does that make y'all as annoyed as it makes me? Does it piss you off? Does it make your head hurt? I'm up on time. Peace out all. But I really want to know if I'm the only one that annoys. I know some of my subscribers it annoys, but I want to know if it annoys more of you.